Hey guys, I'm David DeMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
This is Hair Loss Hope. And if you're thinking about going to Turkey to get a hair transplant done, then I think you should watch this whole video. I was inspired to make this video because the other day I was in the gym and this guy comes up to me and he's holding out his phone like this and he goes, "Hey, is this you?" And he showed me a thumbnail of Steve and I. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And he said, "Yeah, I've been watching a bunch of your hair transplant videos. I just went to Turkey and got a hair transplant."
I was like, wait a minute, I think I've seen your videos on YouTube. Are you David? And then we just kind of started talking, and so yeah.
So Habib just went to Turkey and got a hair transplant, and you're like a month.
Unfortunately.
No. Still, you might be okay. You might be okay. Okay.
So. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for Habib.
Yours looks great. I mean, you really can't tell, and you can't see the scars really, so it looks good. Yeah. So hopefully mine looks like yours one day.
And I said, "Well, have you been watching my videos before you got the hair transplant or after you got the hair transplant?" And he gave me this kind of like uneasy look, like almost queasy type look, and said, "Well, actually, I started watching your videos after I got the hair transplant. I wish that I'd started watching them before." And I took a look at the guy. He told me that he'd gotten a package deal in Turkey where it was up to 5,000 grafts for only, I think it was 2,500 euros. He showed me his donor area and it looked kind of very moth-eaten. So it only had one hair transplant, but you could already see these little splotches in the back of his head. And, he showed me, lift up his baseball cap that he had on and showed me his hair. And you could tell that he now felt very uneasy about what his results might be. And so I wanted to make this video to just kind of discuss why that might be. So if you personally are going to Turkey because you've found an incredible surgeon in Turkey, you love their work, you know that they only work on 1 or 2 patients a day, and you're really excited about that individual surgeon, that's great. If you're going to Turkey though, because it's just going to save you money, if that's your number one reason you're going to Turkey, then I think that you're probably making the wrong decision. So let's relate this a little bit to something that you might care about a little bit more, that hopefully you won't have to experience, but maybe you will at some point, which is open heart surgery. Would you go to Turkey for your open heart surgery? Personally, I have lived in the Philippines and I've spent a ton of time traveling around many third world countries. And I've gotten medical work done. I've got my teeth done. I've had some very, very minor surgery done in Malaysia. So I'm not against people getting work done in other countries. But I can tell you completely that I would not go to Turkey to save money on a hair transplant based on the experience that I have dealing with hair transplants. And that's because if I was going to get open heart surgery done or any type of surgery, I want to research that doctor. I want to know that it's someone that I can go back to, like that guy who talked to me in the gym. He can't go back there if the grafts don't grow, if it doesn't work out, if he realizes that his donor hair was decimated. There's nothing that he can do. He is just done. And really, he doesn't have a whole lot of options after that. If I'm going to have my open heart surgery done, I want to make sure that they're only working on me. In Turkey, it's all a volume thing for most clinics, for the majority of the clinics, the most people that go there. And it makes sense that you can save money on the surgery because they're doing way more surgeries. So most of them are at least like 10 a day, right?
At least.
Yeah. So if we're looking at cost and you're going to perform 10 open heart surgeries a day and you're going to charge 3,500 euros for each surgery, well, then you're making 35,000 euros. Now, the difference is, what if that surgeon is charging $15,000 for an open heart surgery? So what's that? I don't know, 4 times as much, but they're only working on you that day. Me personally, I would much rather the open heart surgeon that I'm sure is an expert and is only working on me that day. I want them to be fully rested. I want him to have been working with those exact same staff members for years. So if anything goes wrong, they are already planned and are trained in exactly what to do. I would much, much rather spend that time and spend the extra money getting the $15,000 open heart surgery with me being worked on that day than 10 other guys. And I don't know who those tech teams are or if they've ever worked with those surgeons before. And I don't know how tired they're going to be by the time that they do my surgery because of all the volume of what they're doing. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So the business models, when you look at hair transplant clinics, when you're talking about a price-driven model or you're talking about a quality-driven model, it's two separate things. When it's a price-driven model, obviously, to make the numbers that the business model needs to hit, they need to work on more patients. When we're talking about traveling overseas, especially by today's standard, it's mostly FUE. What a lot of these places leave out is the fact that FUE is extremely labor intensive. It takes 4.5 hours sometimes to take out the grafts. When you're talking about 5,000 grafts, that could be 5 or 6 hours. A doctor that removes a strip of tissue that's really good at it takes 25 minutes and turns the patient back over. So the labor is very intense. When you're doing 10 patients a day, God forbid, 15 or 20 patients a day, and you need a huge staff, what is the quality of the best person that day versus the newly hired person?
Mhm.
So the volume clinics, meaning high volume versus low volume, is a huge difference. So when you're paying a very low price for a hair transplant, it's got the business model has to make up that money somehow. And you're paying the price for the quality of each one of that staff and that doctor. And it just doesn't make any sense when it comes to you going in for the highest quality hair transplant.
The other day, I was watching a guy named Amir who's going to Turkey for a hair transplant. And one of the things that he said as to one of the reasons that he's going to Turkey for a hair transplant was they do more surgeries there, so they have more experience, so they do a better job. And unfortunately, that's just not the way that this always works. If the amount of quantity that you produce dictates the quality that you're producing, then China would produce the best quality everything because they produce the biggest quantity. So something like microphones, like high-end microphones, there's millions of them that are made every year in China. So you would think, well, China makes the best microphones. But why is it that people will spend 3 or 4 times as much money on something like a Neumann microphone that's German made when Germany doesn't make nearly as many microphones in volume? And it's because at some point there is a sacrifice for quantity versus quality and brand, a brand name and a boutique business model. A company whose microphone preamps I use is Wes Audio, who's based in Poland, and they make really quality, expensive gear. And the other day, after gosh 3 or 4 years, there was a piece in the microphone preamp that I was using, and I own a lot of their equipment, but just one of the pieces that stopped working. And I wrote them on Instagram and I said, "Hey, this preamp, stopped working. Where can I buy a new piece or something like that?" I thought, well, there's no way that they're gonna like, I wouldn't even consider that they would send me a brand new piece from their headquarters in Europe after this is like a very old piece of gear I don't have a receipt for or anything like that that's like 4 years old. But as soon as I wrote them and told them that this piece had broken, they immediately shipped me a new piece from Europe because they really stand behind their gear. And if this had been a $200 instead of $1,000 preamp that I had bought in China, I don't think that company in China would have sent me that new op amp 4 years after the fact. So it's just a very different type of business.